As traders implement more things into their trading, they tend to overlook something so simple that can be used really well in like a majority of stocks.
What is that specifically, but also is there a big picture involved?
I am looking to execute and enter on the 1 and 2 minute time frame, but that thesis is coming from this is still a probability-based numbers game. A lot of trading is just if-then statement. If you're a discretionary trader, you have to have these if-then statements.
Yep.
If the stock does this, then I'm going to do that.
All these nuances matter because everything adds up to create a high probability of success.
There's a general rule of thumb where if we trade above the opening print and hold opening prints, you generally want to...
Welcome back to Be The Trader, everyone. Today is going to be a great day because we're going to be going into details of trading. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking about that. And so I brought Tanner back to the show where he's going to be talking about one of his favorite setups and share a screen here. And we're going to go into questions and just details of how he playbooks and so forth. So Tanner, thank you for being here again, man. And for y'all who don't know who Tanner is, go check out his previous interview. He's been trading he's in his 5th year right now and found profitability midway through about 2.5, 3 years. So welcome to the show again, and let's get started, bro.
Right on, thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man, absolutely.
So really just kind of like breaking down like one of my like most simple like favorite setups is just the pullback to VWAP.
Okay.
And I think this is something where as traders like implement more things into their trading, they tend to overlook something so simple, such a basic concept that can be used really well in like a majority of stocks and indices and futures and whatnot. So really with pullback to VWAP, it's like such a simple concept. If we are trading above VWAP, we're looking for a pullback into VWAP to hold. And if we're trading below VWAP, you're looking for a retrace and a reject, basically to trade it back down. So very simply, that is the premise of this setup for me, like really what I look for. And what I do with pullback to VWAP in general is I have what's called like a playbook. So you hear this term all the time in the industry, playbooking, like what is playbooking?
Right.
And some people do it different. Like a playbook can be a specific setup that they are like detailed looking through. And then there's a concept of like what's called playbooking.
Okay.
And playbooking, the way I do it is I playbook the easy money setup of the day. So basically every day what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm looking for like a variation of this pullback to VWAP. I'm seeing how it looks, I'm looking for the details behind it, and I'm like annotating and like putting these certain ideas in my head behind like how it looks and like what it should do. And so the more I do that, when it comes to fruition in real time, I'm like, okay, this is my setup. I know what to do here. It's in my time frame of what I'm looking for.
Right.
And then I execute accordingly. And so the daily rep of doing this is something I talked about in the interview. Is like I talked about the big 3 things I do every day: playbooking, individual journaling, and then the daily report card. So this is the last thing I do pretty much every day. And when I just go through the charts, I look through like the time frame of trading that I'm trying to build. Because again, it's like, everyone can build a trading business around specifically certain times of the day. It's like you don't have to trade just in the morning, you don't have to trade just in the afternoon. It's like what works with your schedule and what are you trying to build?
Right.
And so with the pullback to VWAP setup, there are times when it's outside of that frame that I am not trying to trade. And I kind of just go, well, you know, that's not really what I'm looking for. Like, can I find it within this time frame? So when I go through the charts every day and I look back, it's like if I did not catch it, or I did catch it, regardless, I want to review that specific time frame of when I'm trying to trade. And for reference, I trade from the open until about 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And so really like that 2.5 hours is my window of opportunity.
Okay.
And then even within that, to get even more finite, I found out the pullback to VWAP setup for me works best like roughly 20 minutes after the open.
Okay.
And so sometimes it does work, like I said, before 20 minutes, but 20 minutes after the open is my sweet spot. So once I get to that threshold, I really start to look for it and then kind of look for criteria.
That's nice though too, because then you don't have to deal with all that emotions right at the open, where a lot of traders are trying to trade right at the open, right? Because all that volatility. I'm curious, what are you looking for big picture? Like, because I know your focus on the VWAP is there a specific time frame? I know you said there's one time frame you like to focus on. What is that specifically? But also, is there a big picture involved?
Yeah, for sure. So it's actually a great question because I do go top down from everything. So it's like big picture trading should go from weekly to daily to hourly to 30-minute, 15, and so on and so forth. So like I am looking to execute and enter on the 1 and 2 minute time frame, but that thesis is coming from the overall bigger picture daily setup. what is the daily setup? So I still use a lot of like discretionary price action based trading where, big picture, I have a thesis for the day, like, okay, I think, we're gonna open base on this level and trade above here. So if I start to, a lot of trading is just if-then statements. If you're a discretionary trader, you have to have these if-then statements.
Yep.
If the stock does this, then I'm going to do that.
Right.
So I do that a lot from big picture top down. And so like if the stock starts to do what I believe it's going to do and trading in my favor, then I start to look for potential pullback to VWAP within the time frame that I've studied.
Okay, cool. So if you can walk us through some of these ideas and how they pan out, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So this is one of my playbook entries I have. This is NQ. So I do trade futures. I trade ES and NQ.
Okay.
So specifically pullback to VWAP with futures is something I can find like almost every single day. That's why I really like it.
Okay.
And it's, like I said, it's so simple and straightforward. So this is a playbook entry that I have from NQ on 12/18. And I have like my daily setup up here. Basically, this is just a daily Momo setup, meaning it's like daily momentum. We had just kind of broken out. So I'm just looking to ride daily momentum in the uptrend.
Okay.
Intraday strategy is the NQ pullback to VWAP, and then time of day. Like I love time stamping this because when you go through the data later and you look through, you kind of see where your sweet spot is for that pullback to VWAP and like what works the best. So those are three criteria I kind of have just to put like headings on the playbook entry.
And by the way, 6:50 a.m. is because you're in?
I'm in Pacific Standard Time. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Very, very important to note. So then I have trade idea, big picture. So I kind of just write about, I basically said the market's breaking out. It's very strong. It was opening mid near term range, and we caught some buying off the open, and then basically looking for that pullback into opening print VWAP near term volume point of control. So I know there's a lot of big words, but basically it'll make sense at the end. What can really help your playbook setups in general also is having confluence. And for those that don't know confluence, it's like multiple theses and areas lining up, and that allows you to have conviction in the idea. So when I playbook stuff also, if there is confluence, I definitely annotate it and I take note of it, because that in the future tells me if we are pulling back to VWAP and there's a key level or like multiple key levels, I'm like, okay, this is more than likely probably going to work.
Yep. It just gives you more confidence.
Exactly. Because again, not every trade's always going to work. This is still a probability-based numbers game.
Yep.
So you have to accept that. But the more things that line up, it's just adding conviction.
Odds.
Yeah, it's higher odds. Exactly.
That's all I see.
Exactly. So kind of going down into it, here's the chart down here. I'll get to that in a second. But basically, I kind of just write about the setup. And here
this is before you take the trade?
This is after.
Okay.
This is all after the fact. So before I take the trade, like that's a different thing where like I have a plan kind of written out, and then, but I'm going through scenarios in my head.
Yeah.
But this is after the market's closed, and I'm just kind of writing about like what happened and basically how I can just remember this for next time. Because again, part of what I do every day is just putting in these reps of doing this work, because it just starts imprinting it in my brain.
And then real time, you're like, I remember all these things I've reviewed. Cool. All right.
Exactly.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be The Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show.
So really right here, it just says the setup, like when market is in breakout mode, big picture, we're looking to just stay long with the trend. So many people want to fight the trend. It's like, don't fight the trend. Setup today had 3 areas of confluence, which made this A+ overall. Around 6:50 a.m., we pulled back into VWAP on NQ. So we'll see that right down here. This purple line for reference is VWAP on my chart. And ignore this line. This is just like a trend, like a 9 EMA line. Okay. But the purple line is really what we're focusing on, the one that's moving, the dynamic one, not the static one.
Is this a daily chart? I can't.
This is a 5-minute chart, okay. So I can make this big picture too. I'll get to that in a second. But along with VWAP, we had near-term volume point of control. So for those that don't know, this is something volume point of control is just basically an accumulation of volume on like a, have you ever used like a volume profile chart?
I've seen it, I don't use it.
Yes, okay, so volume profile, it's interesting. Instead of having volume near like the bottom of the chart, it's gonna be on the side and it's gonna be pushing volume towards like the most condensed area where prices were transacted. So this is something I learned where when we trade into it a lot of the time, it acts as support or resistance more often than not, especially if we're in a range or coming out of a range. And it's just another area I pay attention to. It's not necessarily something I just live or die by, but it's another area of confluence where I'm like, okay, this is something important and I have the level on my chart just for reference.
Okay.
So along with VWAP, like I said, we're trading near that volume point of control and opening print. So again, for those that don't know, opening print is basically just like where the stock opened right at the open of the session, of the cast session.
Yep.
So at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, where was the print? You know, specifically. So that always is, there's a general rule of thumb where if we trade above the opening print and hold opening print, you generally want to stay long. It's almost similar to VWAP, where it's like if we are above it, you want to stay long. If we're below it, you want to stay short. So it's really important to note that with pullback to VWAP setups, they always seem rough in the moment when we pull in. However, this is when we want to really like establish risk. So as we slow down and come into VWAP, I'm gonna actually pull up the chart now so you guys can kind of see like big picture.
There you go, yep.
Okay, so let's kind of break it, let's go into this a little bit more. So 6:30, again, I'm Pacific Standard Time, so we open here, this is my opening print level. This is gonna be roughly, 16,847, let's call it. And again, everything is not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be an exact to the penny, like, especially with futures, you're gonna have a lot of zones. You're gonna have areas of importance that you wanna pay attention to. And even with any stocks, you'll see this a lot where like stuff will overshoot, stuff will undershoot. It's like nothing is perfect. They're testing the waters to see who wants to go long or who wants to go short. So we rip at the open here initially, have this big 2-minute candle. And part of my strategy and system with this is I just don't trade the first 20 minutes. I let this do its thing, and for a good reason, because we got a rip at the open. Yeah, technically could have maybe caught this dip initially into 16,835 area. Yeah, but like I don't want to play the wild west. It's just kind of too volatile at the open. I'd rather wait. So I let about 20 minutes go by. We end up fading back down into VWAP. So this is a 2-minute chart. And as we pull back down into VWAP here, this is where my brain is going, okay, I have the volume point of control level, which is this 16,843 area. Opening print is kind of just mentally marked in my head of that 16,847. And then we have VWAP. So I'm like, okay, this is 3 areas of like, if it's going to hold, it's going to hold here type thing. And it's within my time frame of what I'm looking at, that 20-minute, kind of that sweet spot. So this is where all the stars are starting to align. So I'm like, I have to take this, type thing. It's like all the stars are aligning, like I'm creating a thesis, if-then scenarios. And very simply, like as we pull into VWAP here, I'm looking to establish risk and I'm pretty much putting my stop at low a day. Like that's it. Right under this long wick right here at the open, I'm putting my stop. I'm getting long here as close to VWAP as I can. So if I go now into, real quick, my execution chart down here, you can see like I actually got long pretty much right there as I talked about. So it's like as it's pulling in, we're holding. And a big important thing in being like a discretionary price action based trader is as price comes into a level, this is kind of just like your like 6 cents of screen time where as the tape slows down, as things slow down, it's something that it takes a lot of time to build like this reaction where you are realizing what's happening. And especially like as we come into VWAP, is so many people I think naturally want to go the other way. Like, oh, this is going to break down. It's going to break low a day. But if price is slowing down, it's probably for a reason. And so like as we slow down here, my brain is going, okay, we're slowing down. We're at VWAP. We're at volume point of control. We're holding opening print. I have to get long. And so in the moment, sometimes it'll feel uncomfortable doing that.
Of course,
That's a huge part of it.
It's just against normal, like what we want to do, like in general.
Yeah, and it's like, it feels uncomfortable. Exactly, it's coming down, so I don't want to go long. So, but it's coming down, so I get long, and it's like a really clear, like I said, I have a great stop just clearly there. I let it trade, and you can see I got out of pretty much all of it here, like into high and day. And we actually were just talking about this off camera, but it's so much easier to always retarget intraday structure of something that's already established on a trade because at least with futures, more than likely you're going to have a retest of that structure a lot. versus a full breakout or a full breakdown. So the safer trade is always just cover some into high a day or close into high a day, and then see if you can go for the bigger picture. So I think a good takeaway from this is why I playbook also, because this is how I executed the trade right here, but it's not how I wanted to fully execute the trade.
Gotcha.
You know, I want to always learn how could I have done it better, and so on and so forth. So here I'll go back to the chart that I was kind of like annotating and marking up. You know, I showed you I got long here. Again, this is the 2 minute. I was just showing you the 1 minute, but I got long down here into VWAP. And I annotate like pull back 20 minutes into the open, 3 areas of confluence, VWAP, near-term volume point of control, and opening print. So I have all those areas of confluence. Target 1, just shy into high a day. You guys just saw on my other, you know, on my other chart, that is where I took all of it off.
Yep.
But realistically, what I should have done is taken half off into here and then left some for this level right here is prior day high.
Okay.
So a lot of times in futures, you know, and just in stocks in general, it's like you'll see prior day high tested, prior day low tested. So a better management of this and me for next time would be, okay, take some off into the test of current highs and then take the rest off into prior day high.
Yep.
So that's why I like to annotate the charts as well, and why I do this playbooking stuff and go back, because I may have executed this trade and taken it, but there's always a way to do it better. There's always a way to look at like, how could I have done this better? So pretty much doing this type of playbooking stuff every day is really just what builds overall confidence in your thesis of what you're looking for. And I'll kind of show you real quick, like I'll just go back. Like I have a database of these. Like, you know, it's like there's tons here, and like a lot of them, as you can see in intraday strategy, they just a lot of them say VWAP. Because I'm really just focused on what this looks like, and there's just variations of it and iterations of it. Like you can see on some of these even it says SPY pullback to VWAP or ES, because for those that don't know, ES and SPY are essentially the same, but one is the futures products and one is the actual indice. So, you know, I'm doing this every day pretty much for the most part, and it's just a part of my daily process, like I talked about in the pod, where doing this every single day, and trust me, like I don't there's days I just don't want to do it. Like it's like, you know, this is part of like the discipline and the habit thing. Like there's days where I'm just like, I don't really want to do this. But I know the more that I do this, it's going to ultimately lead to me understanding the setup and me understanding what I'm looking for. The nuances of it, exactly. Because those little details of like multiple areas of confluence and how we pull into something, how we're holding, you know, talking about in the tape that we're slowing down at VWAP. Like those are all little nuances and details. Like, you know, like Lance talks about this all the time. 100%. He's like, how does it pull back into VWAP? What does it look like? Recreating that scenario in your brain, because really the goal, you know, we're not hindsight traders. No one does this hindsight. You're trying to guess what happens based on theory of what you've seen in practice. 100%. So, you know, it's doing this daily work of playbooking is, I just think, such a good habit. And, you know, the more I do this with my clients too, the more they understand, like, oh, like I fully like conceptualize the setup as well. And so even something for me, being like a coach and mentoring people, a lot of them have been like, not fully understanding their setups. And like, it's interesting for me because I'll have to go into their setup and be like, okay, well, let's get more detail on this. Like, how does this make sense to you? You know, why does it make sense to you? What time does it make sense to you? All the little details.
So when you ask them those questions, they start to realize like, oh, I don't know that answer. Oh, I didn't think like that. And that's just because all these nuances matter, because everything adds up to create a higher probability of success.
Correct.
And what's interesting, what you said also earlier, Tanner, was the idea of it was the tape and then slowing down. But it's also important for a lot of people to understand that the tape, it also depends on the concept of like what the tape was prior, right? Before it slowed down. Like what if it was always slow and then speeds up?
Correct.
That could be another sign, right? Like it's all about concepts, and screen time's so important, everyone. This is why he said it so many times. Like, don't just listen to Tanner right now and be like, okay, every time the tape slows down, I'm gonna start buying. You know, like that's not, you're learning the wrong lesson. He's saying there's confluence, right? There's VWAP, there's prior day, the opening price. Then he has the volume weighted average, like the majority of volume in a certain area. Like he has all these things lining up, and then the tape is also coinciding with that, and you're like, okay, I have more confidence. Doesn't mean he's gonna win. He has no idea, but he does know the odds are in your favor.
Correct.
100%. I love that, man. So I'm curious, if someone is interested in trying to like, okay, I hear VWAP, I'm gonna start studying VWAP, what would be the one tip you give them if they're going to try to go down the path of like, I want to learn how to trade off of VWAP?
Really just pay attention to how price pulls into it. pay attention to how price is reacting to it, and realize bigger picture on the daily setup what you're looking for. Because again, it's always top down. So like a good example of how VWAP sometimes can be really tricky is if we're in like the dead center of a range, just in the middle of a range on the daily. Sometimes VWAP isn't as reliable. We're gonna chop up and down through it, and then it gets really frustrating, and those are actually some of the harder days, especially if you are like a VWAP trader, because you don't have as much conviction. But that's also part of it, is like, you know, you're gonna have a few red days out of the month. Like, it's just part of trading. So it's if you can learn how to control those days, that really is gonna lead to longevity. So really just pay attention to the reactions of VWAP, how it's pulling in, and just the most simple thing anyone can do. If we're trading above VWAP, stay long. If we're trading below it, stay short. It's, you know, that's the most simple thing that's always overlooked, because everyone wants to catch like a really, really big move one way or the other.
And I know, so I want to ask this one thing as well, because you just mentioned something. When it comes to the big picture, let's just say, to keep it simple, it's big picture, it's breaking out all-time highs, okay? All-time highs breakout, and it's gapping up way above all-time highs. Are you still thinking in your head, like, do you use the view up strategy when it's near the big daily setup? Or do you, as long as the daily setup is still bullish, you'll still like play the VWAP dips?
Yeah, as long as the daily setup is still bullish, like I guess like Meta today is a good example. Like I think we traded above VWAP all day today on Meta, broke out into all-time highs after earnings, and you know, it's just something where too many people try to fight the trend. And when the chart is giving you enough clues and information saying, yo, don't fight this, it's clearly bullish. Take that information and just stop being so stubborn. Like that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Tanner, and for those who are curious, because he mentioned Meta, it's February 2nd, 2024, so you can go pull up that chart. But again, thanks for being here, brother. Where can people find out more information about you if they have questions?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at The Strong Trader, also on Twitter, or X it's called, at The Strong Trader. I have coaching links in my bio on Instagram if anyone wants to work with me. And I love trading, I love lifting, all that stuff.
Awesome, brother. Well, thanks again, my man.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.